The Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, "This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Christ.
Please be seated. There's a lot of good energy this morning. I don't know what it is. Going from 8 o'clock until now, there's just a lot of, I don't know. It's good. It's beautiful. But if you'll please pray with me really quick. Dear Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be good and acceptable to you. Amen. So today, the story begins with after 6 days, leading us to believe this is the 7th day. It's a day of rest, the Jewish Sabbath, from sunset on Friday to sunset on Saturday. A day of rest to enjoy being in community, to enjoy simply being in the presence of God's beautiful creation. This is the day that Jesus chooses to take Peter and James and John up the mountain. It seems almost too perfect. And up on that mountain, it says that Jesus was transfigured, that he was changed, exalted, glorified. And Peter and James and John are just, watching this happen. And I can't imagine what was running through their minds. And we have to remember what happens before we get to this passage, at the end of chapter 8 in the book of Mark. First, Peter proclaims Jesus as Messiah. Then Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. And then Peter, of course, proceeds to rebuke Jesus, probably out of denial. I mean, who can blame him? Death is scary. And whoever would want to see their friend suffer? I think Peter might be going through a bit of another strange phase of denial here. As Jesus stands there talking with Elijah and Moses, which, by the way, who knows what they could have been talking about, just chatting up on the mountain. But as they're talking, Peter is looking at them with great awe and maybe some fear. But he says, "Let's stay here. Let's make these dwellings. This is beautiful. Why should we leave? This is it. The gang is all here. We got Moses, who brought the law, and Elijah, a great prophet, both of whom Peter has only ever heard stories about, and Jesus is standing with them." Peter wants to make these dwellings so that they can stay there. And it makes sense, right? Let's just hang out here. I mean, who wouldn't want to remain in that moment, in this moment where Jesus stands alongside these 2 individuals, Moses and Elijah, who have been known to share this close, intimate, and particular relationship with God? Peter wants to stay there, to embrace it, to explore it, maybe. And then a voice. "This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him." Not only is Jesus shining so bright you can probably barely stand to look at him, but there's also this voice that furthers what is happening here, that Jesus is revealing who he is, that he is life, that he is light, that overcomes darkness and death. Yes, Who wouldn't want to remain in that moment, especially when you were just told that Jesus would have to suffer and die, that bad things were going to happen? Nope, we're going to stay here. We get the point. Jesus is light and life, and I got it, and now Jesus doesn't have to die, right? All that stuff he said about suffering doesn't have to happen because we got it, Jesus. We can stay here in this moment where God says, this is my son, the beloved. And it's obvious. Jesus is like all shiny and stuff. We can stay here in this moment since this is a glimpse. Since maybe we think we now know who Jesus is in this moment. And I think we have those moments too that we simply want to remain in, that we want to hold on to. Moments where we don't want things to change and we just want to stay steeped in that perfect second in time. But we can't. Say, for instance, when you hold your baby for the first time, there's been so much buildup to this day, and so there's relief and fear, but ultimately an immense love overwhelming every other emotion in your body. Or like when you dance with someone you care about. You stand so close to that person that there's just this peace that overcomes your body, and the rest of the world disappears. Nothing else exists. Or when you go on that hike that you've been waiting to go on for a very long time, you bring some snacks to eat along the way, of course, and you hop along the rocks, you explore the path that clearly very few people have walked on. You smell the smells, even if that smell is your nasty, sweaty self. And you finally make it to the top of that mountain. And you sit there, just basking in the sun, snacking on a granola bar, drinking some water, not realizing that anything else in the world exists but this. And then there's that moment when the sun starts to hit the very tip top of the neighboring mountain. And you're like, yeah, well, gotta head back down before it gets dark. It's time to drag yourself back down that mountain to attend to real life, to the cars, to the work, day in and day out. Time keeps moving forward, even though we might be in denial sometimes. Just want to stay there. Jesus is transfigured before Peter, James, and John, and they want to remain in that moment, but Jesus knows that his work is not done. Jesus doesn't just say, hey, I am the light and the life. And everyone gets it, and we can all live happily ever after. This is just a glimpse of who Jesus is and of who God is. This is a moment where Jesus' identity and his purpose is truly verified. His work, however, has not been fulfilled, even though it might seem to Peter, James, and John that it has been fulfilled in that moment, that, hey, this is the one we've been waiting for, the one who will change the world and redeem the world. But they must return and continue working. Jesus must suffer before it is finished. Jesus must teach and heal and walk us through this different way of living. We must see Jesus physically suffer and be raised from the dead, because it is the only way we will somehow, possibly, who knows, it is the only way we might be able to comprehend what forgiveness, love, and the defeat of death could possibly mean. So then the question is, do we take it seriously? When we prayed that prayer this morning, Lord, transfigure us through your Son. Are we changed? Elijah passed on these spiritual gifts to Elisha, and Moses passed on his work to Joshua. And while Jesus came to save, and this is fully realized through his death and resurrection, Jesus is transfigured, standing alongside these two individuals in front of Peter, James, and John, transfigured, exalted, glorified, changed. But this is not the ultimate moment in Jesus' life. It is not the moment where all is revealed like Peter might think. It might be a great moment of realization for Peter that this is for real, that Jesus really is the one, that God is real, and that God is present with us every day. But there's so much more that has to happen. There's so much more to be done. So they head back down the mountain, asking questions all along the way. What just happened? What's going to happen? Because seriously, their minds have just been blown. And what does Jesus then go and do as soon as they get down the mountain? He goes to heal people. The work never stops. The teaching and the healing and the prophesying, it never stops. It further reveals to us who God is, who Jesus is, and how the Spirit is working within our world. And so I say, embrace those beautiful moments, those moments on the mountaintop, those moments with loved ones, or the moments of just being present in God's creation. Embrace the moments, and as life moves forward, we're given hope in those. We're given hope through Jesus' one moment of transfiguration, the hope that Jesus is light and life, the hope that God's love is being revealed to us every day through the Word and through our loved ones and through the lives we are able to live because we know we are forgiven and loved. Through this story of Jesus' transfiguration, and in those moments, we are given hope and strength to continue moving forward and to continue serving others just as Christ moved forward from that moment of transfiguration in order to serve, in order to love, and in order to fulfill a larger purpose. Amen.